Hi, everyone.
Greetings. We're on page 34 of the Finished Mystery, dealing now with the text, chapter 2, verse 14 of Revelation. I'll back up again into 13, because without 13 you can't really get a fix on what 14 is talking about. Mm-hmm. Christ says to the angel of the church in Pergamum, "Write the words of him who has the sharp two-edged sword. I know where you dwell, where Satan's throne is, yet you hold fast my name. And you did not deny my faith, even in the days of Antipas, my faithful witness, who was killed among you, where Satan dwells. But I have a few things against you. You have some there who hold the teaching of Balaam, who taught Barak to put a stumbling block before the sons of Israel, so that they might eat food sacrificed to idols and practice sexual immorality." So what's the problem we nailed last time? Well, it is that you've already jumped from the literal application of this to the church that existed around 100 AD in a city called Pergamum. You've already jumped to the typical, the antitypical, the typical being this church, which you don't talk about very much at all, but the antitypical being the entire church situation, as you read it, between around the year Constantine became emperor and subsequently the Christian religion was made the official religion, right up into deep medieval times, the corruptions of the papacy during that late period around 1100 AD. What's the problem with that? Well, you've forgotten already what's in verse 13, namely that yet you hold fast my name. So there's some people in Pergamum who are doing the right thing and being faithful.
And a martyr in there.
And a martyr who is called Antipas, my faithful witness.
Yeah.
Notice the plurality here of my. You hold fast my name, you didn't deny my faith, and Antipas was my witness. Would we even notice that?
And it's Christ talking to the church.
Christ speaking. So whose name is important for the church to uphold? And of course that's consistent in the New Testament. But the point is, when they get to their analysis of this, it's all negative.
Yeah, they immediately go to church history, papal history, mostly.
Yeah.
And they make comparisons. So even the very first statement under 2:14 is, when he says, "I have a few things against thee," they interpret it as against the nominal church of the Pergamus epoch. So immediately you're outside of the church altogether, and you don't have a mixed bag. You just have a nominal church.
Weeds that are masquerading as wheat is the idea, right?
Yeah, that's the idea. So they're eliminating any good people being in the particular time frame that they talk about, or in the church.
Right. But of course, in the text about Pergamum, there's no papacy at all, and there's no clergy even. You want to make it all about unfaithful clergy, as we'll see.
Yeah.
In the rest of this description.
And then even in the description of the problems, they also make that into types. And so they've got fornication being symbolical of union of church and state. And then they also say that that Balaam means or refers to money-loving, power-loving clergy. And it's spiritual fornication.
Whereas the text says, Balaam, who taught Barak to put a stumbling block before the sons of Israel, that they might eat food sacrificed to idols. So idolatry is the number one problem, not money.
Yeah.
And sexual immorality is the problem, because that's what Balaam uses to get the people to consider other gods.
So when you're talking about Pergamus, it's literal fornication.
Yep.
That's talked about. And then when you compare it to the time of Barak, that's also literal.
Yes.
It's not some kind of symbolic fornication. And it's
not church and state, like they want to make it.
Yeah. And it's not a nominal Israel that's talked about.
No. It's God's people all through the ages, and there's always a mix in the ancient covenant, that is the Abrahamic covenant before the law. There's always a mix of good and evil in the people of God. That's been true for the first 2,000 years, from Abraham to Christ, and it's still true of the church today.
So if you're going to talk about the period of Balaam and those that fell were seduced by Balaam
A
into
minority.
committing fornication, why not talk about the ones that stood against them?
Where's the hero Phinehas here? So
Yeah.
far in their analysis of Revelation churches, you've got one hero,
Yeah.
and that's Arius, who was in the days of Constantine, of course.
But this problem still exists with the Watchtower of wanting a pure church and an unfaithful,
Mm-hmm.
nominal church. They can't have a church that has both in it. But that has been the truth throughout history, that there's always a mix, and a remnant, a small remnant, really, of faithful usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find it ironic that by the time you get to the bottom of the page 35, they're talking about the unfaithfulness of those who chose a different kingdom that was basically a kingdom now, i.e. the amillennial tendency in the church of the Middle Ages, which is true, which amounted to we want to rule over our not only over the pagan world, but we want to rule over the church.
And that Christ is doing it through us. So this is the statement that they make. The Bible teaches that Jesus will set up his own kingdom at his second advent in power and great glory, and that the Virgin Church will become his bride and joint heir by the power of the first resurrection. But the thing why it's ironic is because they've more or less adopted this idea.
The idea of a visible organization representing an invisible king, yeah.
Yeah, they've just sort of made it
Mm-hmm.
made it apply now to them. Because can you really say, according to the way they believe, that Christ returned now in 1914? But I don't think even here it wasn't 1914. But returning in their time frame, invisibly, and here it says in power and great glory. Can you say that Christ returning invisibly is with great power? Nobody notices but you?
That's right.
That doesn't sound like great power.
Which is not just an invisible presence, but an invisible resurrection, because they say that 3.5 years later, after he invisibly came in not power, but he came invisibly and turned his attention to the earth, and then there was an invisible resurrection of the faithful saints of old, sometime in the period 1918 to 19.
This doesn't sound glorious or powerful. If nobody notices except you.
Yeah, so the amillennial teaching, by the way, for those who don't know, is that there was a kingdom set up on earth by Christ, and that church is represented by that kingdom is represented by the church, and that the texts that refer to bodily resurrection, according to premillennialism, such as Revelation 20, are actually referring to a spiritual rebirth that happened to the church. So again, it's all stuff that can't be checked with the eyes.
Yeah. And then the other point just to be made is the only person they quote here, or the only quote reference, is themselves.
Yeah, 2 quotes from the Watchtowerr.
Yeah.
What's our link?
We have a video called Kingdom Now, and it was about Jehovah's Witnesses and Peter. So Peter, when he says, "Oh no, that was not going to happen to you, Lord," he's criticized for doing that.
And there's a direct connection to this text, because what does Christ say to Peter? "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, because you think the thoughts of men, not God." Mm-hmm. So the prosperity idea that's been there, the Watchtowerr version of the prosperity gospel, which is Kingdom Now, and it's been there since Russell's day, because it was always just ahead.
Yeah.
Your paradise, whether it be spiritual or literal, is always just ahead. Certainly, you will live to see it.
Yeah, and it becomes a stumbling block because people aren't looking at Christ now, and what he achieves through his death. Now it's about, I want the kingdom on the earth now.
you are thinking the thoughts of men.
Mm-hmm.
See you next time.
Mm-hmm.